It's hot, it's cool, it's wet, it's dry, so you never know what to expect, but we're glad you're here this morning. Our purpose is the same as it is every Lord's Day morning when we gather together to worship, be together, to build each other up, and just to have a good time in the Lord. So we'll intend to do that this morning as worship band leads us in some singing. We'll meet around the table later. Jason's got a wonderful message planned. It's going to be a great day in the Lord. Amen? Amen. Let's pray. Father, we are grateful for all the blessings you've given us and all the things you do for us. We're thankful for the freedom we have to be here, for the wonderful facility we have, for the people who are involved in teaching and leading us in the worship service and just doing everything we do here at Hall Branch. We're thankful for all of them, for the opportunity to serve. We pray now that everything we say and do and everything that happens will just be a glorification to you and just a pleasant sound in your ears. And Lord, we just hope somebody here this morning will see the need to obey the gospel and become a Christian before it's the last thing to be too late. Thank you again for all you do for us. In Jesus' name.
Stand and sing.
Above all things. Neil, there's something I would like to do, if you don't mind. I cleared it with Deke. After all the grief that Frank and the others got for reading from Genesis, I can't be specific, but something I want to do. Houston, Tranquility, over.
Tranquility, Houston, go ahead.
Roger, this is the LEM pilot. I'd like to take this opportunity to ask every person listening in, whoever or wherever they may be, to pause a moment and contemplate the events of the past few hours. And to give thanks in his or her own way. Over.
Roger, Tranquility Base.
I am the vine and you are the branches. Whoever remains in me and I in him will bear much fruit. For you can do nothing without me.
That was Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong. Buzz Aldrin was the one who took the communion out. And I did a little fact checking to make sure this was all factual. And that's exactly what was said, exactly what was done. He sought and got permission to bring communion. And just think of what was going on right here as that lunar module was on the moon. There's no telling how many thousands of things are going through these guys' minds. But Buzz takes the opportunity to take communion and put first things first. And he took communion to thank God for, number one, their safe landing, and number one, just respect God. Because at this point, these guys don't know whether they're going to make it home or not. They're just happy that it actually landed on the moon. Now they got to get it. But with everything going on, they stop everything, and he protects communion. Since Apollo 11 landed on the surface of the moon on Sunday, July 20th, 1969. Most of us are familiar with Neil Armstrong's historic statement as he stepped onto the moon's surface. This is one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. But few know about the first meal eaten there. Buzz Aldrin had brought aboard spacecraft a tiny communion kit provided by his church. Aldrin sent a radio broadcast to Earth asking listeners to contemplate the events of that day and to give thanks. Then, in radio blackout for privacy, Aldrin poured wine into a silver chalice. He read, "I am the vine, you are the branches. He who abides in me, and I in him, bear much fruit." That is John 15:5. Silently, he gave thanks and partook of the bread and cup. God is everywhere, and our worship should reflect this reality. In Psalms 139, we are told that wherever we go, God is intimately present with us. Buzz Aldrin celebrated that experience on the surface of the moon, thousands of miles from Earth. He took time to commune with the one who created, redeemed, and fellowshiped with him. Are you far from home? Do you feel, if you're on a mountaintop in Dark Valley, no matter what your situation, God's fellowship is only a prayer away? Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to be here this morning. We thank you for this opportunity to join around the table, to take time to reflect and contemplate, number one, the great sacrifice that Jesus Christ made for us. That gives us all here this morning an opportunity for eternal life. And I ask you just to take time to clear your mind and put Him first and foremost in your thoughts, and just pray. And just remember, Jesus Christ sacrificed His life for all of us, and we thank Him for that. Forgive us of our sins, bless these emblems. In Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Sometimes it feels like I'm watching from the outside. Sometimes it feels like I'm breathing. But am I alive? I won't keep searching for answers that aren't here to find. All I know is I'm not home yet. This is not where I belong. Take this world and give me Jesus. This is not where I belong. So when the walls come falling down on me, and when I'm lost in the current of a raging sea, I have this blessed assurance holding me. All I know is I'm not home yet. This is not where I belong. Take this world and give me Jesus. This is not where I belong. When the earth shakes, I wanna be found in you. When the lights fade, I wanna be found in you. All I know is I'm not home yet. This is not where I belong. Take this world and give me Jesus. This is not where I belong. All I know is I'm not home yet. This is not where I belong. Take this world and give me Jesus. This is not where I belong.
Good to see everybody here today. Hope you had a great week. Am I the only one who finds it hard to believe that June is just, 2 weeks away? We can have something like that. June will be here. Seems like time flies, and summer is getting here very, very rapidly. And so with that being the case, there's lots of things that are going on out here at the church this summer with Vacation Bible School coming up in July and June. We're going to be helping out with the state softball tournament that's going to be taking place in 3 locations here in Chocowinity. And so opportunities for us to get involved in ministry, that's an opportunity for us to get involved in the community. So I want you to pay attention to those things so you'll know when those things are coming up here very, very soon. And I hope you were handed a bulletin when you got here. Lots of things going on. This afternoon, those of you who have signed up to go to the Wood Ducks game down there in Kinston, they are at the will call. And so what's going to happen, we're going to get there. Everybody get down there on your own at about 1:30-ish. We'll meet right there at the will call, and I'll give those tickets and hand them out to you when we get there. So they got us a little place for us. We're all going to be sitting together, so you'll receive your tickets when you get there. And I'll hand those to you. You can go right on in. I plan on getting there about 1:15, 1:30 to do that, get that ready. First pitch is at 2 o'clock, so you just know that you know everything that's happening this afternoon. I want to encourage you this Thursday, Unity Christian Academy, we have our graduation here Thursday evening. I know Friday night, Teresita School has a graduation. I know the public schools are having their graduation here in about a 2 weeks time period. And so lots of things going on. So with that in mind, on June 4th, we're going to be recognizing those who are graduating, who attend here at the Hall Branch Church of Christ. And so I want to encourage you to be here June the 4th, that Sunday morning, for our worship time. And then after, we're going to be having a meal over at the Family Life Center as well to recognize and congratulate those folks who are graduating high school. How many of you who are a little older like me remember graduating high school? Everybody remember that day? You know, it's crazy how time flies. I graduated high school in 1990. 1990. You know, look back and think, man, that was a long, long time ago, but time flies. I know there's some of you in here that graduated long before 1990. It flies by. It flies by. I remember complaining to mom and dad growing up, can't wait till I graduate high school, can't wait till I graduate high school. It seemed like it took 50 years to graduate high school. In some cases, for some people, it did take 50 years to graduate high school. But it seems like it took 50 years to graduate high school, but then after you graduate high school, time just goes by like that. I mean, it's no time. And so it's crazy. I know John, I think Edwards had a birthday yesterday, turned 25, is that right? And I was thinking, man, it's crazy. You just graduated high school, you know, last week or something. But anyway, time flies by. But June 4th, we're going to be recognizing those graduates. Get your Bibles out. I think I've got it up there for you. All those verses are not going to be, the entire text is not going to be up there for you. So get that out. We're going to be looking at in Luke chapter 9 this morning, looking at verses 1 through 17. I also want you to write down as well, I want you to write down 1 Samuel chapters 4 through 6. And this week I want to encourage you to go back in your own time, in your devotion time maybe, and read 1 Samuel chapters 4, 5, and 6, because we're going to hit on something that took place there in that Old Testament book. But we don't have the time to read all 3 of those chapters. But it's going to shed some light into what we're going to be talking about this morning. Growing up, I went to Elizabeth Elementary School, just right downtown. It was downtown Charlotte. And I can remember it's funny how you can remember some of your teachers when you were growing up, and then some you don't remember their names. And I remember my first kindergarten teacher, her name was Miss Gupton. And the reason I remember her is the way that she got paddled. And she had a paddle and hold out your hand, and she would hit your hand with that paddle when you got in trouble. And I remember her. I remember her 3rd grade teacher, Miss Johnson, because she was mean. I don't remember my 1st or 2nd grade teachers, don't remember their names. But my 4th grade teacher, when I got to Elizabeth Elementary School, was a fellow by the name of Mr. Bowling. B-O-L-I-N-G, Mr. Bowling. And Mr. Bowling, things were a lot different back then. This would have been in 1980, 1981. Things were a little bit different then. And the school was about 5 stories tall. And there were little, fire escapes off of each classroom. And, it was a little bit different then. The teachers, they would take their smoking breaks out on the fire escape during class. They would give you your assignment, and the teacher would go out there, stand at the fire escape, keeping his eye on the class, and, take his smoking break, which is, at the time, I didn't think anything of it. Fine with me. Which will be a little bit odd today in today's time. But I remember Mr. Bowling because one of the things that he did is every day, and I'm sure my other teachers did it, but it just rings true with him. Every day he would have someone who would lead the line to wherever it is that you were going in the school, whether it was a lunchroom, whether it was to PE class, music class, art class, wherever it is. And you felt privileged when you were the line leader. And that he would say, Jason or whoever, today you are going to be the line leader. And everybody felt privileged because everybody was following you. So wherever it is that you were going, they were supposed to stay there. You could have led them anywhere, but you were the line leader and that is who you have to follow. Another interesting thing about Mr. Bowling, during Christmas break, he made the, I guess, New Year's resolution, if you will, to quit smoking. And back then we still had the chalkboard and chalk. I don't know if they still have those in classrooms today, but he would take that chalk and he would use it as cigarettes. He would stand up in front of the classroom teaching, and he would have that chalk, you know, because I guess it was just a habit to him. But he was quitting the smoking. But being that line leader was something that was very interesting. And this morning we're going to be looking at Jesus and why he is worth us following him. Why he is worth us following him. Because he is never going to lead us somewhere that is going to lead us into trouble if we were to follow the Lord. Now, in our lives, there's going to be times where we go through peaks and valleys. But the Lord is never going to lead us somewhere where we are going to be, our spiritual lives are going to be damaged. In the World War, some Turkish soldiers tried to drive away a flock of sheep. And on a hillside, it was on a hillside near Jerusalem. And the shepherd who was sleeping was suddenly awoken as he saw them being his sheep that he was supposed to be leading as they were being driven off. But single-handedly, he knew that he could not recapture his flock. He knew that was just a task that was much too strong for him or big for him. But suddenly, he had this thought. And so standing up on his side of the ravine, he put his hands to his mouth and gave out his own particular call that the sheep would recognize. And when the sheep, they heard it. And for a moment they listened, and hearing it again, they all turned around, and they rushed down one side of the ravine and up the other, and it was impossible for those Turkish soldiers who were driving them away to stop them. So the shepherd took his sheep to a place of safety before the soldiers could get all those sheep together and kill them, which is what they were trying to do at that particular time. Because those sheep knew who their leader was. Those sheep knew that their leader, their shepherd, if you will, was not going to lead them to a place of destruction. And so when they were being scattered, they heard the particular and that call that shepherd would make each and every day to them. And they recognized it. They recognized it. And the way that they were heading, they suddenly turned around and went the opposite direction back to who it was that was going to give them protection. And that is my hope and my prayer for all of us this morning. That we may be, some of us in here, all of us in here, I don't know, we may be going in the opposite direction of the Lord. We may be trying to do our own thing. But my prayer is this morning that we will recognize that particular call, and that call that the Lord makes to us to get us to turn around and head in the direction that only He can lead us. That is my prayer for each and every one of us this morning. I think sometimes, though, I know myself, we forget how powerful God is. We forget how powerful He is. We talk about His power, but likely we talk about it without sometimes fully comprehending how powerful of a God He is. You know, here in Eastern North Carolina, we see certain acts of power. You know, we see hurricanes that come through this area. We've had our fair share of those. We've seen even this past fall and even a few weeks ago, the powerful waters of floods and the things that can happen when those things arise and when those things take place. So seeing objects of power and those kinds of things is nothing new to us. But when we think about God and His power, it brings us to the story, I believe, that we find in 1 Samuel chapter 4, 5, and 6. We have there the story where the Philistines, they have captured the Ark of God. They have captured it, and they set it by the statue of Dagon, you know, which was their man-made god. And they set the Ark of God beside the statue of Dagon, basically as if to say that the God of the Philistines had defeated the God of the Hebrews. All right, He is better than the true God. He is better than your God. And on the next morning, the people of Ashdod found Dagon on his face on the ground, symbolically in submission to the Hebrew God. They woke up to this. So the God that they worshiped suddenly was looking like a man, or the statue there was representing one of weakness. It's symbolically in submission to that Hebrew God. See, Dagon was so powerless before God that he could not even lift himself from the ground. Instead, the people, 1 Samuel chapter 5, verse 3, had to set him in his place again. See, their God couldn't help himself out. Who had to help the God out? It was the people. They had to set him back up into the place where they wanted him. But God didn't want to allow the Philistines to think that Dagon had fell over in the night. And so the next morning, they found the statue that they had raised the previous day again on the ground. But this time his head, this time his hands were cut off. It was as if he had been defeated and he had been dethroned in the night. And he could not protect himself. He could not protect his people from the power and the judgment of the one true God. Now I know as we sit around and we think about this story, we think, how in the world those people have been so dumb to worship this man-made God? This past Wednesday night in our study out here on Wednesday night, we talked about that. We talked about idol worship and how today we are still caught up in it just as much as those folks in the Old Testament were. Certainly we may not have a golden calf, in our home. Certainly we may not have a Buddha sitting in the middle of our living room that we circle around and we pray to, or whatever the case may be. We don't maybe go in that direction, but we all have certain things in our life that have become a god to us. It could be your husband. It could be your wife. It could be your boyfriend. It could be your girlfriend. It could even be your kids. It could be the car you drive, the job that you have, the home that you live in. Whatever the case may be, there are many things in our life that become an object of our worship. It becomes a god to us because we're thinking about it all the time. We live our life for that, or for that particular person, instead of letting God be who He wants to be in our life. And that is the one true God. And He was trying to show the people here, the people, that the statue there of Dagon, this man-made God, is nothing in comparison to me. In our everyday lives, we need to understand. He was trying to get them to say, you know what, you need to follow me. Don't follow that statue. It's not going to get you anywhere. And what He's saying to us is much the same thing. Do not follow that job, if you will. We all need them. Don't misunderstand me. Don't make that your God. Follow me. Don't make that husband your God. Let me be your God that is going to lead you. Certainly there are things that need to take place in the home, and those relationships need to be built. But there are many times where we let the things that we think about, that we live our lives for, that takes up our time, our energy, and our effort, and the things that we are throwing money at, it becomes our job. Turn, if you would, to Luke chapter 9. Luke chapter 9, I'm going to take the time to read here in chapter 9, verses 1 through 17. And just as in the Old Testament, God was trying to get those people to understand, I am the one that is worth following. In the New Testament, it is much the same way. Just as those folks in the Old Testament needed to follow God, those in the New Testament did as well. And because of how powerful He was showing Himself there to those worshipers of the statue of Dagon, He showed His power in the New Testament as well. Verse 1, here's what it says. When Jesus had called the 12 together, He gave them power and He gave them authority to drive out all demons and to cure diseases. And He sent them out to proclaim the kingdom of God and to heal the sick. It says He told them, take nothing for your journey. Take nothing. It says no staff, no bag, no bread, no money, no extra shirt. All right, it says, whatever house you enter, stay there until you leave that town. So could you imagine leaving for a trip and not taking anything? All right, don't take anything. Just get in the car and we're gone. Some of you say, yeah, I would love to do that. Just get in the car and we're gone. But just imagine, ladies, you not having a suitcase. or in many of your cases, suitcases. You know, when you go on those trips. But here Jesus, he tells these guys, you know what? Take nothing for your journey. I wonder what he was trying to show them. You know, I'm going to tell you to go some places, but I'm going to look after you. I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to make sure that your needs are going to be met on an everyday basis. Basically, don't depend upon yourselves, depend upon who? Depend upon me. Depend on what the watch and care that I am going to provide for you. Verse 5, he says, if people do not welcome you, leave their town and shake the dust off your feet as the testimony against them. So they set out and went from village to village, proclaiming the good news and healing people everywhere. So can you imagine the excitement that's going on? They're going to village, they're preaching, they're teaching about Jesus. There are people that are being healed. It says here, everywhere. So just imagine the excitement. And then all of a sudden we see what happens here in verse 7. It says, now Herod heard about all that was going on. It says that he was, in the New International Version says, he was perplexed. He was perplexed because some were saying that John had been raised from the dead. Others that Elijah had appeared. And so others that one of the prophets of long ago had come back to life. But here's what Herod says in verse 9. But Herod said, I beheaded John. Who then is this I hear such things about? And he tried to see him. Herod hated what was taking place. He was thinking, you know what? If I can just kill John, if I can behead John the Baptist, if I can get rid of what it is that he's teaching, if I can get rid of what it is that he's telling others, then I can get rid of all this. And so he becomes perplexed because he sees and hears all the great things that are going on. And he's thinking, you know what? Man, I thought I got rid of it. I thought I got rid of that problem in my life, which is this telling others about Jesus. I thought we've gotten rid of that. And so what it is that he wanted to do is he wanted to see them. Verse 10, we pick up the story. It says, when the apostles returned, they reported to Jesus what they had done. So we just read earlier, they were going where? Village to village. They were preaching, they were teaching, they were healing people. And so they give back to Jesus, and they're just giving him a report of everything that took place. Everything that was going on in the villages that they entered in. It says, then he took them with him, and they withdrew by themselves to a town called Bethesda. So, but the crowds learned about it, and they followed him. He welcomed them and spoke to them about the kingdom of God and healed those who needed healing. Late in the afternoon, the 12 came to him and said, send the crowd away so they can go into the surrounding villages and countryside and find some food, so they can find some lodging, because we are in a remote place here. All right? They were out in Edward. You know, they were away from everything. You know, they were down, you know, in Messick. You know, there was nothing to eat. There was no place to stay. And you can imagine what happens when people get hungry. You know, one of the best commercials on television are those Snickers commercials. Because we're all divas, aren't we, when we're hungry. So just imagine this crowd that has gathered, and they're all hungry. It says he replied, give them something to eat. And they answered, we all have only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, unless we go and buy food for all this crowd. And verse 14 says, and about 5,000 men were there. Now that's interesting. It says 5,000 men were there. In Jesus' day, when crowds were gathered, the only ones that were counted were the men who were present. So when we talk about the feeding of the 5,000, it wasn't just the feeding of the 5,000. It very well could have been upwards of 20,000 people here. When you count the women, when you count the children who were there in this crowd. So just imagine PNC Arena. You walking in there with what? With the fish and the loaves and feeding all those people with just that small amount. That's what was going on here in this particular occasion. It says, but he said to his disciples, have them sit down in groups of about 50 each. All right, so he's trying to get some order here. All right, about 50 each. It said the disciples did so, And everyone sat down, taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks and broke them. Then he gave them to the disciples to distribute to the people, and they all ate and were satisfied. And the disciples picked up 12 basketfuls of broken pieces that were left over. So they even had more than enough for everybody. In the Old Testament, God was showing his power. In the New Testament, God showed his power just as much. So when we read that today there, we see of Jesus multiplying 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish to sufficiently feed upwards of probably 20,000 people here, and still have 12 baskets full of leftovers. He just kept multiplying it to them and giving them to the disciples to set before the people. It just kept multiplying. The only miracle other than the resurrection that all of the Gospels writers record was right here. This story reminds us that God can make many out of a few. He is powerful. He can make much out of little. He can make more out of some than we can never ever expect. And we need to always remember that. He is God in the flesh, the all-powerful one who chose to become man like us. It was his decision, and he redeems us and he guides us. So why don't we follow him? Why don't we do what he wants to do in our life? Because he gives us, as it told us there in Luke chapter 9, verse 1, he gives us power and authority because he is both. He has both as the Son of God. And so from these 2 stories, very quickly this morning, there are 4 things that I believe we always need to remember as to why Jesus is worth us following him more than anyone else in our lives. Number one, he is so powerful that we need to remember, in fact, that we do not need to fear anything. He is so powerful that we don't need to fear anything. Just imagine the disciples here. You had this large crowd. You were in a remote place. They were getting restless. They were getting hungry. They probably heard some murmuring here. And so they went to Jesus and said, we got to send these people on so they can find some food, they can find some lodging, because we might be in trouble here. There might be a quote-unquote little mini riot on our hands because there's nothing here to eat. There's no place for all these people to stay. And I wonder if fear was setting in with the disciples here as they went to Jesus and asked him, what is it that we're going to do? See, in our life, sometimes when our plans don't go as we think, fear can set in. Fear can set into our lives with certain occasions and things happen in our life on an everyday basis. Maybe it's we lose our job. Maybe we're having family difficulties. Maybe we're physically sick. Maybe there's a loved one who is physically sick. Maybe there's a loved one who may be even on their deathbed. They're dying. Fear sets in. But what we need to remember is looking in the Old Testament here in 1 Samuel 4, 5, and 6, and also in the New Testament here in Luke chapter 9, that God, because of who he is and what he does for us, there is no need for us to fear anything. No need whatsoever. Yesterday, when we got here for the food distribution, there were some folks in the kitchen doing some things, and Stacy was over there at the bar. She was not a literal bar, over there at the bar getting some things together and getting some things ready. All of a sudden, and that ice maker that we have in the kitchen where the decibel level is, you get out there and you can't hear anymore. But we had that ice maker in there, was making a lot of noise, but all of a sudden, all you heard was, there was a spider on the floor. Right there at Stacy's feet. Scared to death of spiders. So who is it that she calls to come and get the spider? Me. And I go over and look at it, and I don't want to touch that spider. That spider's pretty big. All right? But fear had set in. She needed someone to get rid of what it was that was causing that fear. And in our life, sometimes we need to let out the biggest scream we can and call on the one who can fix it. Call on the one who can get rid of that fear in our life, and that is God. He is the one, because of who He is, we have no reason to fear anything. Number two, there is nothing that we are going to face that is too big for Him. Nothing whatsoever that we're going to face that is too big for Him. He rose from the grave. He rose from the grave. Now, I don't know about you, but there's nothing bigger in your life that you're going to face other than death. But here Jesus is. He died and He rose. You know, that's a big dilemma. You're dead. But the next thing is, He rose from the grave. Nothing too big for Him because of what He is, what He has done in our life. Nothing too big for Him to solve. We're going to face all kinds of things in our life. You think, you know what, there's no way that I'm going to get through it. And you're right, there is no way you're going to get through it by yourself. No way. No way whatsoever. You might be battling all kinds of addictions. You might be battling all kinds of sin, whatever the case may be. And there's no way that you're going to get through it by yourself. No way whatsoever. The only one that can help you get through it and see you to the other side is relying on God's strength, relying on His power, and relying on His authority because of who and what it is that He does for us. Number three, there is no enemy who wages war who can ever defeat Him. No enemy whatsoever. I don't care who it is. Growing up, I loved to watch Tom and Jerry. Loved the cartoon Tom and Jerry. Some of you in here, I don't even know what I'm talking about. Tom and Jerry, one of the greatest cartoons of all time. But I always, for at least one episode, please let Tom kill Jerry. Please let Tom get that darn mouse. That mouse would play tricks on Jerry. Remember, he would take shorten the chain link for Spike the dog, remember? So that Spike would even get a hold of Tom. Jerry would play all kinds of tricks. Growing up, I wanted that coyote to get the Roadrunner. Never saw it, but that Jerry knew every day his enemy. He knew who his enemy was. His enemy was Jerry. And Jerry sometimes would get him in that sandwich. And I'm like, yes, this is the episode. He's finally going to eat Jerry. It's going to be over. But no, Jerry would get away. See, in our life, it's much the same way. We've got to recognize who our enemy is. Tom knew who his enemy was. But see, in our life, sometimes we wake up and we think our boss is our enemy. Sometimes we wake up and we think, you know what? My husband, he's the enemy. My wife, she's the enemy. The kids, they're the enemy. But we don't recognize who truly is the enemy, and that is the devil. That is Satan. Because we say it, I try to say it each and every Sunday. The devil is the one who's prowling around like a roaring lion seeking whom he may devour. And that's us. That's what he does. And so we go down all these little paths because we don't recognize who our enemy is. And that is the devil. We think it's all these other things that are going on. We think the enemy is the Republican Party. We think the enemy is the Democrat Party. We think that the enemy is ISIS. We think the enemy is all these kind of things. Don't misunderstand me. Certainly there are enemies that we face in this life. But the enemy to us as Christians is who? It's Satan. He wants to confuse us. He wants to confuse us and let us think, you know what? Those other employees, they're the enemy. No, they're not. No, they're not. It's only Satan. And we need to understand that he is the enemy, but there is no enemy who rages war against God who is going to ever defeat him. Number 4, and the last thing is there is no false god that can ever stand before him. No false god. On the day of judgment, if your God is your house, you're not going to be standing in judgment before your house. If your God is your boyfriend, you're not going to be standing in judgment before your boyfriend. If it's your girlfriend, your husband, your wife, job, whatever the case may be, you're not going to be standing in judgment before those things. You're going to be standing in judgment before God himself. All those false gods are going to go by the wayside and have gone by the wayside. The statue there of Dagon. God showed who was the one true God. In your life, I want to encourage you this morning. Why not let Jesus be your leader? Why not follow him? We see it from Genesis to Revelation. We see it. So why do we put people, why do we put things before him? Why is it that we do that? Why is it that we do that over and over again? And some of you in this room, you might be 80 years old. Some of you in this room might be 8 years old. But I don't care how old you are. We all do it all the time. We put other things before him. Let's stop playing games. Let's stop playing those games that we need to get rid of. And let's start living a life that follow a true God so that every day of our lives we can understand he is going to lead us in the right direction. Stop playing games with the Lord. Stop looking to other things to fill those voids in your life. Stop looking at other routes to fill those voids that we have, and all of us do. The only one that can do that is Jesus. The only one that can do that is the one that came, that lived, that died, that rose again, so that you would have the opportunity for eternal life. Why not follow him? Stop following these other stupid, dumb things. Let's get real. Let's go to the Lord in prayer. Dear God, thank you so much for this day. Dear Lord, I thank you that all the way from Genesis to Revelation, you are the same. I thank you that from day one till now and forevermore, you are the same. And dear Lord, simply because of that, that is a reason in and of itself for us to follow you. Dear Lord, I know that there are some here this morning that need to get back on track. I know that there are some this morning that need to take that first step to come and to give their life and to be baptized for the forgiveness of their sins and the gift of your Holy Spirit. There are people in this room that need to do that. There are people in this room that have been waiting for, quote unquote, that right time. But there is no better time than now. There are people in this room that are waiting. You know what? Let me just think about it some more this week, and then maybe next Sunday I'll make a decision. Let's just call that what it is, dear God, and let's just throw the devil out the back door because he wants us to just think those things. He wants to have those thoughts in our mind. And so, dear Lord, for all of us, for me who have been a part of this family here for 13 plus years, there may be some people in this room this morning who have been a part of this family here at Hall Ranch for over 60, 70 years. But I don't care how long we've been here. Dear Lord, there are some of us that need to get real. There are some of us that need to get right with you. And dear Lord, I pray that decision will be made this morning. I thank you for the opportunity that we have for second chances because what you did through your Son. And we thank you for it because we all mess up. Dear Lord, if there is any this morning need to make a decision, I pray that they will. I thank you for your Son. I thank you for this time. It's in his name that we pray. Amen. Let's stand and sing.
Between my fingertips, done. Been lost forever. Yeah, I should be in that fire, but now there's fire inside of me. And here I am, a dead man walking. No place but a whole God's people. All the weight of all our evil. Lifted away forever free. Good to me, good to me.
What a powerful song. Forgiveness is a great thing. We all need it, but none of us in here are deserving of it. But God loves us so much that He gave His Son so we would have that opportunity. I want to encourage you, the invitation might be done as part of our worship hour, if you will. But I want to encourage you, if anything you need to talk about, the invitation is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's all the way up until the Lord returns. And so I want to encourage you, if you have anything you need to discuss, don't hesitate to call me. My number is there in the bulletin. Don't hesitate to call, text, and I will get back with you as soon as possible. So if you have a decision to make, don't hesitate. Once again, don't forget about the Wood Ducks game this afternoon. I've got the list of all those who signed up for that. I'm going to take that out to the connector. If you have your money here for those tickets this morning, you can leave it there on top of this piece of paper and just mark your name out that you have paid. That would be great. Or you can bring it to the field or to the stadium this afternoon, or drop it off like next Sunday, however it is you want to handle it. But we'll meet down there 1:15, 1:30, somewhere in there. I'll wait out there until everybody gets there and hand you your ticket when you get there, so we can go in there and enjoy a baseball game this afternoon. The Lord bless us with some cooler weather today. This morning when I got out very, very early, it was almost, I saw some flurries, which is kind of weird. But anyway, I've got a guy I graduated college with. He is preaching in Montana, and they had 10 inches of snow this week. He was having pictures showing out there. There ain't no way I'm living out there. No way whatsoever. You can have it. But anyway, have a great week. Don't forget about all the things that are taking place. Grab a bullet before you leave here. If you did not, when you got here, don't forget hallbranchchurch.com, and all the activities are listed there as well. Mr. Gene, you might close us out with a prayer this morning.
Heavenly Father, we just